Hello everyone, and let's start with another unit. Okay, so in the last unit we have covered cardinal approach. Now in this unit we'll cover ordinal approach. Okay, it's the second part of your unit 2. So let's begin. I hope you have studied the last video and understood it. Okay, any doubts you can ask me. Okay, so I'll share my screen now with you, my presentation. Yes, as you all know, our online lectures are going on for Dr. D.Y. Patil, VVSE and Arts Commerce Science College, Shahunagar, Pune. So in continuing this session, let's continue with the second part of Unit 2, that is ordinal utility approach. Now the utility is not, the ordinal approach suggests that utility is not measurable. Now it will be opposite to cardinal, right? You all studied cardinal approach. So ordinal utility approach suggests that utility is not measurable. Consumer should be able to determine the order of preference among different bundle of goods. That is, consumer needs to know in specific units the utility of various commodity, know his preferences. In other words, according to the ordinal utility hypothesis, while the consumer may not be able to indicate the exact amount of utility and that he derives from commodities or any combination of them, but he is capable of judging whether the satisfaction obtained from a good or a combination of good is equal to, lower than, or higher than another. That he can find out. Understood? That is ordinal utility approach. So in this, we'll understand indifference curve analysis. So indifference curve, what is that? The indifference curve may be defined as the locus of points giving a particular combination or bundle of goods which yield the same utility or level of satisfaction to the consumer so that he is indifferent as to the particular combination he consumes. Thus, a consumer is indifferent towards all the combinations lying on the same indifference curve, as you can see, right? So the indifference curve is a graph that shows the combination of two goods that gives a consumer equal satisfaction and utility, thereby making the consumer indifferent, right? So indifference curves are heuristic devices used in contemporary microeconomics to demonstrate consumer preference and the limitations of the budget. So recent economists have adopted the principle of indifference curve in the study of welfare economics as well, right? So there are different assumptions of this particular analysis. Now, what are those? The first one is more of a commodity is better than less. That is, it is assumed that a consumer will always prefer a larger amount of a good to a smaller amount of that good, provided that the other good at his disposal remains unchanged. That this is very reasonable assumption implies that the consumer is not oversupplied with any good, right? So when a consumer is oversupplied, right, or oversaturated with one good, he will prefer a smaller quantity of that good to its larger quantity. So that's the assumption, and it is that assume that the consumer has not yet reached the point of satiety in the consumption or any good. That is saturation. The point of satiety means the saturation point. This is what is called. This assumption is therefore known as non-satiety assumption, right? The next assumption is preference or indifferences of a consumer are transitive. That means suppose there are three combinations of two goods A, B, C, and if the consumer is indifferent between B and also between B and C, it is then assumed that he will be indifferent between C2. So this implies that consumer states and is quite consistent, and this assumption is known as assumption of transitivity, right? Next is diminishing marginal rate of substitution. That is, in indifference curve analysis, the principle of diminishing marginal rate of substitution is assumed. Like, for example, in other words to tell you, it is assumed that as more of unit X are substituted for unit Y, the consumer will be willing to give up fewer and fewer, right, units of Y for each additional unit of X. Or when more and more of Y is substituted for X, he is willing to give up successively fewer and fewer units of X for each additional unit of Y. So this rule about consumer behavior is described as the principle of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. And this principle follows as a matter of logical necessity from the assumption that particular wants are satiable and that various goods are not perfect substitutes for one another. So these three are the assumptions of indifference curve analysis. Now there are principles and characteristics of indifference curve analysis. Now indifference curve operates under many assumptions, as you all know. For example, each indifference curve is convex to the origin and no two indifference curves ever intersect. So consumers are always assumed to be more satisfied when achieving bundles of goods on higher indifference curve. So if a consumer's income increases, for example, the curve will move higher up on a graph because the consumer can now afford more of each type of goods. It's a common human psychology, right? So many core principles of macroeconomics appear in indifference curve analysis, including individual choices, marginal utility theory, income and substitution effects, and selective theory of value. So indifference analysis emphasizes marginal rates of substitution and opportunity costs. I think opportunity cost you have studied in your first year. Then in the last concepts. So all other economic variables and possible complications are treated as stable or ignored unless placed on an indifference graph. Look, most textbooks build up indifference curves to introduce the optimal choice of goods for any consumer based on their incomes. Classical analysis suggests that the optimal consumption bundle takes place at a point when a consumer's indifference curve is tangent with their budget constraints. The slope of the indifference curve is also known as MRS, right? That is marginal rate of substitution. The MRS is a rate at which the consumer is willing to give up one good for another. So if the consumer values apples, for example, the consumer will be slower to give them up for oranges, and the slope will reflect this rate of substitution. So this is how it goes. So there are a few criticisms, like assumptions are there. There are criticisms and complications, like indifference curves, like many aspects of contemporary economics. It has been criticized for oversimplifying or making unrealistic assumptions about human behavior. One important criticism is that indifference is conceptually incompatible with economic action, and every action necessarily demonstrates preference, not indifference. So otherwise no action would take place. So this is how it is criticized. So other critics note that it is theoretically based to have concave indifference curve or even circular curves that are either convex or concave to the origin at various points. So consumers might also change between two different points in time, rendering specific indifference curves practically useless. So this is how it is criticized on these grounds. Right? This was all about your indifference curve analysis. Now let us understand, okay, don't forget to draw a diagram that I have shown you when you are explaining this indifference curve analysis. The next concept in this unit is your consumer equilibrium. Now, what is consumer equilibrium, right? The consumer is in equilibrium when he maximizes his utility given his income and the market price. That is, every consumer aims at giving maximum satisfaction out of his given expenditure. Of course, we all try to attain maximum satisfaction out of the expenditure that we do. But then it should be worth buying, the value of money. So the consumer is said to have attained equilibrium when he spends his income or budget in such a way so as to yield optimum satisfaction. Assume you as a consumer and then understand things. Okay. So given the prices of two goods and the consumer preferences, like in simple words, a consumer is said to be in equilibrium when he is getting maximum satisfaction out of his limited income, right? So when you're studying macroeconomics, always assume you as a consumer and how you will behave, right? So a consumer may find out his equilibrium condition with the help of indifference curve analysis. So let's understand. So consumer's equilibrium through indifference curve analysis is based on assumptions like the consumer is rational and seeks to maximize his satisfaction through the purchase of goods. The consumer consumes only two goods, for example, XY. The the goods are homogeneous and perfectly divisible. The price of the goods and income of the consumer is constant. And another can be the indifference map for goods X and Y are given. The indifference map is based on consumer preference for the goods. The presence of habit of the consumer does not change throughout the analysis. And of course, the income of the consumer should be constant. So these are few of the assumptions, right? Now, conditions on consumer equilibrium. The following is the condition on consumer equilibrium. So budget line should be tangent to the indifference curve. It is said that if you want to have a consumer equilibrium, budget line should be tangent to indifference curve. So how it is? We'll understand this with the help of a schedule as well. So consumer equilibrium is based on the assumption that the income of a consumer is constant and that he spends his entire income purchasing only two goods, X and Y, whose prices are given. So a budget line is a graphical representation of various combination of two goods that a consumer can afford at specified prices of the products at a particular income level. Budget line can be drawn on the basis of expenditure plan. So here, the table given below is an example of expenditure plan, and the graph that follows is its presentation on graph. So let's understand the table first. So what is given here? Budget of the consumer is rupees 10. Price of goods X is 1 each, and price of good Y is 2 each. Remember the price of goods, because we'll be calculating it. So this is the combination of unit X and unit Y for at a particular level of income of a consumer, right? So now this schedule will put up in the form of a graph. So if you put up in the form of a graph, how it comes, right? So in the given diagram, we can see IC1, IC2, and IC3 are three different indifference curves. Can you see IC1, IC2, IC3? A consumer can only consume such combinations of goods which lie upon the budget line at a given income level and constant price of goods X and Y, right? So since we have level of income is 10, it is given. Price of X is 1, price of Y is 2. A consumer can only purchase goods in combination which satisfies the given equation, that is I is equal to PX into QX plus PY into QY. Or 10 is equal to 1 into QX plus 2 into QY. Now we have to find out QX and QY, right? So there are different combinations given here depending upon the schedule. It changes the value of X and Y, right? It changes the value of X and QX and QY. Quantity of X and quantity of Y consumed. So for different combinations, at point A, what happens? At point C, what happens? So it should be 10, right? So thus all these points lie on the budget line AB. See, budget line AB, all these points lies. So by the property of indifference curve, we know utility is what? IC3 is greater utility in IC1, it's greater utility in IC1. So so this is how we can find out the best possible combination and consumer equilibrium. So a consumer can have any combination of goods that lie on the budget line except for the combination A and B, because in their case, in either case, he would only have X or Y. So the consumer can purchase combination C or D, right? But these will not yield a maximum satisfaction as they lie on lower indifference curve. On the other hand, he cannot get any combination on IC3 as it is away from the budget line. Thus, the consumer will be equilibrium, that is achieve maximum satisfaction at any given level of income where the budget line is tangent to the indifference curve, that is at point E. Let me show you the diagram again. That is at point E on IC2. Right, at point E on IC2. So that is his point. That is this point of consumer equilibrium. You understanding? So an indifference curve shows a combination of two goods that gives the consumer equal satisfaction and utility, thereby making the consumer indifferent. Right? So along the curve, the consumer has no preference for either combination of goods because both goods provide the same level of utility. So each indifference curve is convex to the origin and no two indifference curve ever intersect, remember. So this is how you find a consumer equilibrium, okay? Now, Another concept is consumer surplus. Let's understand what is consumer surplus. So when a consumer buys goods for a producer, each one gains from the trade. We measure this gain with the help of consumer surplus and producer surplus. So consumer surplus, the difference between what you paid and what you were willing and able to pay. Understood? So the price which a person pays for a thing can never exceed and seldom comes up to that which he would be willing to pay rather than go without it. So that the satisfaction which he gets from the purchase generally exceeds that which he gives up in paying away its price, and he thus derives from the purchase a surplus of satisfaction, that is consumer surplus. So the excess of the price which he would be willing to pay rather than go without the thing over that which he actually does pay is the economic measure of this surplus satisfaction. Like in short, the benefit which a person derives from purchasing at a low price thing for which he would rather pay a high price than go without it may be called the consumer surplus. Right? You can understand this with the help of your own examples. At times you find that our willingness to pay for a commodity may be greater than the price we actually pay for it. So the price that we are ready to pay for a commodity is our individual demand price, and the price we actually pay for it is the market price. You're getting my point? We bargain with the people and all. So according to the economists, consumer surplus is nothing but this excess of the individual demand price over the market price of a commodity, or the positive difference between the potential price and the actual price of the commodity, in other words, right? So like in order to give definiteness to our idea, let us take the example of shoes, right? I'll give an example of shoes. Suppose from the first pair of shoes, a man expects to get satisfaction worth at least rupees 500. From second, he expects 300. But suppose he is just induced to buy 3 pairs and no more. Okay, so what? So what he'll do now? Now, since in the market there cannot be more than one price, the price which he pays for each pair is measured by that of the marginal pair, that is rupees 300. Okay. So he will pay 300 into 3 or rupees 900 in all for the 3 pairs. So, but by hypothesis, he is enjoying from these 3 pairs and number of satisfaction. We are now counting satisfaction. पहले price count किया हमने 300 into 3. Now from first he is getting satisfaction of 500, second 400, third 300, so 1200. So he enjoys a surplus of satisfaction from his purchase is 1200 minus 900. So his consumer surplus is 300. Understood? So consumer surplus is then measured by measured by the difference between total utility and the total expenditure made by the consumer on the shoes. The total utility was 1200, total expenditure was 900. So consumer surplus is 300. So it's difference between individual demand price and the market price. Understood? So hence the consumer surplus may be shown in other way, like consumer surplus is equal to total utility, that is minus total units purchased into marginal unit utility or price. So in short, consumer surplus is the positive difference between total utility from a commodity and total payments made for it. Very short. So the concept of consumer surplus can also be illustrated with the help of this figure. Let me explain you this figure. Okay, observe this figure very carefully. What it is given. So in the figure, the quality of a product, particular commodity is measured on a horizontal axis and its marginal utility or production on the vertical axis. Okay, so here DD is the demand price for it. If a consumer buys all the units OR, can you see, at RS price, okay, he gets a total satisfaction equal to DORS. Can you see it? But he spends only ORST amount of money. Did you see it? So his surplus satisfaction is DTS. That is the shaded area. If the price falls to RS, he would buy OR and his surplus would increase to DTS. You understood this? So consumer surplus is measured by the area. I told you also in the form of the shoe example and also with the help of the diagram that how a consumer surplus is calculated and how it is measured. So it is measured by the area under demand curve, but above the market price. You understood this? A difficulty is that as the price falls, demand where the real income of the consumer increases. So to get a more accurate measure of the benefit of the surplus, therefore, an adjustment will be made to offset the effect of the difference in real income at the higher price RS and the lower price RS. There's a hyphen, there's a apostrophe given. Okay, R apostrophe S apostrophe. That is the lower price. Okay. So consumer surplus is measured by the area under individual demand curve between two prices, but there are difficulty in measurement. It is a monetary measure, although originally represented in terms of surplus utility by Marshall. But it is a measure of the benefit to the consumer, net of a sacrifice that he has to make from being able to buy a commodity at a particular price. So, however, economists suggest the consumer surplus subject to a number of criticisms, mainly due to various difficulties associated with its measurement. Right. So, as every law has its assumptions and has its plus points, the criticism comes along with it. So, it's a part and parcel. So, this is how about consumer surplus, and this ends our unit. Okay, this ends our unit 2. Go through it thoroughly, understand it. Okay, study it please, because every day I am posting one video. So keep on studying regularly. Our lectures will be from Monday to Thursday. So see you tomorrow again, and keep watching the videos and studying and taking out notes, please. Thank you so much.